Hey guys, welcome to Q the Health Podcast. I'm Ashley and Martin, the hostess with so much love for you listening. Q the Health Podcast is here to help you take the right action for your health, healing, and well being. I, along with special guests from time to time, will dialogue and share insights and tools that you can use. Why? Because it's time for many of us to heal in a way that transforms us now and for the long run. Last time we talked about reconciliation. Reconciliation rules. Part one, addressing your wrongs and knowing your rights. Rule number one was addressing what went wrong in a relationship that may be a little bit rocky. And rule number two, knowing your relationship rights, knowing that you have a right to fight for the health of your relationship. Today, we're going to continue with part two, reconnecting. What happens when you decide to take the next step in improving a relationship or in reconciliation? There are a couple of key things you need to be mindful of. And so we're going to get into the next three rules that can help us when we're reconciling. Rule number three, apologize where appropriate. Saying you're sorry won't hurt at all, but it does require a level of humility, self-examination, and honesty. Just jumping back into a relationship or popping up and saying, hey, after there's something that went really wrong is not the best course of action when you are reconciling. If you don't know what went wrong, remember you want to go back to rule number one so that you actually know what you're apologizing for and figure out what went wrong. Take time to listen to the other party. Make sure you're doing your best to clearly articulate and speak your heart about what happened and what went wrong from your perspective. And then you want to simply think about apologizing. If you need help, again, always ask for clarification from the other party and always reiterate what it is if you need to. If you are amongst those who may be thinking, but hey, I don't think I did anything wrong, why should I apologize? Consider what was shared and consider facts where necessary. It's important to know that we cannot always determine or dictate other people's feelings. Just because they felt that way doesn't mean that it was true or that you meant to hurt them or meant to harm them. But it's important to acknowledge someone's feelings, whether you agree with them or not. It helps to keep the peace in a relationship. It helps to bring in peace. Again, it's important to acknowledge that you're hearing them, whether you agree with it or not. And again, share your feelings and share your heart if you need to. How someone else feels doesn't have to make your feelings invalid, but you all clearly communicating that brings a different level of understanding that can usher in peace into a relationship that can help with reconciliation. Now, there are times when it's a hard pill to swallow apologizing, especially if you don't think that you did anything wrong. But there are times when we have to bite the bullet because it'll do a couple of things. It'll clear the air and it allows you to extend the olive branch. And if you really, really want to save the relationship or work things out, sometimes an apology is the right way to go. Now, there are some scenarios where apologizing might not be the best course of action. When you think it may feed someone's ego or feed their pride, or if you know it will in the wrong way, you want to be prayerful, mindful, and very reflective before there's any forced apologies or before you force an apology yourself. You want to be sincere. You want to be genuine. So, again, be prayerful, be mindful, and be reflective. And you'll know what to do. You'll know what to do. In all, apologizing does a heap of good in helping you and others heal. And it's one of the starting points for allowing true forgiveness to flow. So let's look at rule number four, finding freedom in forgiveness. Forgiving frees. Forgiving frees. By definition, forgiveness is ceasing to feel resentment against. It's giving up resentment or anger. Again, ceasing to feel resentment, ceasing to feel anger, stopping that feeling of anger. It's giving all that up. And so what you're giving up and what you're giving up is something that's clogging you up. It's hindering you. And what it would allow to come is, again, that healing that you need, that peace that you need, that love that you want. It can free you up in almost every area of your life if you really let it. Spiritually, it frees us. When we forgive others, we are forgiven. God forgives us. Emotionally, When we let go of resentment and we let go of anger, we can experience more of the good emotions like joy and happiness and gladness and peace and love. We can experience more of those things. Socially, it can free you up and in other areas. And physically, it can free you up as well. There are actually some diseases that are linked. Um, the healing from those diseases are linked to forgiveness. Diseases are things that mess with our ease, and they can be minimized, curtailed, or eliminated through forgiveness. There's power in it. Some of these diseases are connected to things that we hold on to. Again, whether it's that resentment or that anger, or bitterness that sometimes may set in, whether you're warranted to have that or not, or things that try to hold on to us. There is a book called The Body Keeps Score. And in essence, in some, that book is about how trauma can be trapped in the body. And what we don't want is the body keeping score of those things that have happened to you, things that you've experienced, perhaps things that you've even done yourself. You don't want that. Your healthy self wants to be set free from trauma and anything that's associated with it in a negative way. After experiencing a traumatic event myself, one of the keys I use in my healing and in my recovery was forgiving on a daily basis and sometimes multiple times throughout the day. I just confessed it and I said, I forgive so and so. I forgive so and so. Or sometimes I simply said, I forgive. Every time I did that, I got set free in big and small ways. Sometimes in my emotions, sometimes in my mind, and even in my body. I felt differences in healing in my body. So again, I simply confessed it. It was a faith confession. It was something that I wasn't necessarily on surface feeling, but I understood the value of saying it until it became a reality. So sometimes you have to confess things until it becomes a reality. So think about one or two people or three people you may have to forgive and consider confessing that forgiveness. All you have to simply say, I forgive whomever it is. Say it as often as you need to, um, where you need to, when you need to, out loud or even in your heart until it becomes a reality. And what happens is it lessens the sting, it lessens the pain of the thing that happened, whether it was a betrayal, whether it was an incident, or whether it was an injustice. It lessens the sting of it. Okay. It doesn't mean that what happened to you was right or wrong. It doesn't mean that it's going unnoticed. But what it does do, it lessens this thing and allows you to embrace, empower, and own your health and own your freedom. Now, forgiveness doesn't automatically imply re-entry into the relationship, but again, it does allow for that freedom, emotion, physically, and all the ways that were mentioned before. Which leads us to rule number 5. Decide if you will reconnect or disconnect and move on. It's important that, if possible, we're at peace with everybody we can be at peace with. There is enough conflict on this earth, and we don't really want to be inviting more into our lives. So, we want to try to be at peace within ourselves and others when we can and where we can. Peace in your decision making in deciding whether you will reconnect or disconnect from the other party and move on can look different at different times. Sometimes peace is deciding to agree, to disagree, and parting ways. Sometimes it's in addressing things head on and giving the relationship a second, third, or perhaps a fourth chance, a fourth try. And sometimes it's in something else like taking a break. Disconnecting to reconnect is the real thing sometimes, and it can be very effective. In all, reconnecting is a beautiful thing if you decide to do so and speaks to God's ability to heal, restore, and mend. Not reconnecting can actually also be healing, restorative, and very therapeutic as well, depending on the circumstances, situations, and parties involved. But if you do want to reconnect, please consider these things. You want to consider, again, apologizing where appropriate, finding freedom in forgiveness, and then deciding, making that decision if you're going to give it another go and doing that peacefully. So, next time we will get into reconciliation rules part 3. renewed relationships, what actually happens and what should you be mindful of when you do want to take that extra step and go the extra mile, renew their relationship. If you know someone who could use the information shared, please spread some love and some light and some healing and share with them. Until next time, see you then.